What terrifying confession has someone told you while intoxicated? Had a former friend tell me. He killed his brother. Didn't help this was while we were trying to herd his drunk ass to the car as he was crying and yelling at the top of his lungs. Amazing. We didn't end up in cuffs, or at the very least get stopped and question come to find out his brother died of a brain aneurysm, and that morning he prayed for something to happen to get him out of school that day. He always blamed himself for his brother's death, and I get that to a degree. This was about 6 months ago, and now my brother and I were getting drunk one night because it was the weekend and we just wanted to get underscore up and play video games. We had done plenty of shots and plenty of drinks, and we were the definition of underscore up. We were having fun playing some old Call of Duty Zombies for nostalgia, and we paused it to grab some chips. As I was grabbing the salsa, he said to me that he had tried committing suicide about a month prior. To this, he had taken some pills and they pumped his stomach and underscore. And he told me the whole time he was thinking of me and how shitty and depressed I'd be if he had died, and that he'd never want to lose me. I told him I had also tried committing suicide a while ago, and I thought the exact same thing about him. We continued playing zombies while talking about everything under the moon, and we've been talking every day since. Have never missed and will never miss a day. We're both doing a lot better now, and we're both in therapy. It's nice having someone to talk to and trust about these things. Edit, thanks for the awards, y'all. But instead of gifting me stuff, check on your friends and family, and especially people you haven't talked to in a bit. Sometimes worry, just too depressed to try initiating conversation. One time an old acquaintance and I were drinking late into the night. She drank much faster than me, and before long randomly and drunkenly confessed to me the following: when her aging and sick mother, whom she despised and was a ton of unappreciated work to care for, was left in her care, she intentionally withheld certain medications and gave her too much of other ones, with the plan being to kill her off. It worked. She told her other siblings that the illness must have finally gotten to her, and she passed in her sleep since. She was already old and sick. There was no autopsy. Minute later, she snapped out of it and apologized profusely for telling me that, adding that I am the only person she has ever told my mom is a retired doctor, and she always tells stories like this. Apparently 50 years ago, medicine was pretty ruthless, and if a baby was severely handicapped, the doctor would just help along. Same for old people, since euthanasia wasn't allowed, but accidentally giving an overdose is a common mistake, with only a small reprimand. A doctor friend of mine recently admitted to me he killed a dying man because his supervisor gave him a syringe with 10x the dosage. He was upset about it, but his supervisor was like, "Sorry, I made you do that. Mistakes happen. Just learn from it." I'm not saying everyone in medicine is out to kill people, but just be nice to your nurses and doctors. Anyway, my uncle said that my grandfather wasn't exactly a caring, loving father because of working in the coal mines. He said my pap was terrified every day because he didn't know if he was coming home or not, cause he'd hear the mountains above him crack. My grandfather used to be a coal miner too. His career was cut short when the ceiling above him caved in and crushed him beneath it. He actually managed to survive, though he's got permanent injuries and needed a long hospital stay. But he pulled through. The scary thing, though, is that he had been standing in a pretty deep puddle at the time that he was crushed. He fell on his back, and the water was high enough to leak into his ears. Had he fallen face first, he would have drowned in 3 inches of water. Unable to push himself up far enough to get his nose to the surface, was chilling with an older dude with whom I recently started working as a butcher in a grocery store a couple of beers down, and he starts telling me he's been in prison for 17 years, came out 2 years ago, and it's his first ever job at 64 years old. I got curious and asked him what happened. If it wasn't too private, without hesitation, he simply answered, "I cut him down with an axe, this piece of underscore. And now he's a butcher." Dude must really like his job. I guess llama, that's wild for real. It is Lao. I could see in his eyes he wasn't lying, like he had a flashback of the moment. Crazy thing is, H actually the coolest one of my coworkers. H, the only one not acting like a snake. Friend of mine works in an auto repair shop. One of the guys there is the scariest looking underscore. Looks like he's lived a very hard life, neck and face tats, the whole bit. He's incredibly polite, sir, ma'am, very humble, all of that, not what you expect, which of course is all on me for judging a book by its cover. So I asked my friend what the guy's deal is. Killed some guy in a drug deal, spent a long time in prison. While in prison, he decided he didn't want that life, got sober, stayed sober, turned his life around, but nobody wants to hire convicted felons, so finding work is hard. My friend said he's The best guy in the shop. I have a ton of respect for people who can turn their life around like that. And it's unfortunate that prison isn't more rehabilitative and that so many roadblocks are put in the way of folks who've done their time showering off my blackout drunk father. Because he had __ himself when he's starting bawling and confessed to being pinned down and raped by his brothers. Friends edit this comment took off, so I'll elaborate a bit on some questions. I was 16 when this happened. He worked an early shift, so he was always home when I get home from school and would be drunk on the average 4 days a week. He was never abusive or angry, just distant. But in that moment, when he blurted it out, I could see the pain and weight he was carrying through the tears. I was obviously in total shock. So I just let him sob and talk. As I listened, I finished washing him off, then got him to bed where he slept that off. He was blackout drunk, so I knew he'd never remember the conversation, so I kept it to myself. Other than my therapist, I've never told a soul until now. He blamed himself, and there's unfortunately still a stigma surrounding man and admitting sexual assault, but it does happen to them too and needs to be addressed. My father dealt with it in an unhealthy manner for a long time. Whether or not he talked to someone to address it properly, I'll never know, but he has been sober for over 20 years now and much more present in our family's life. A friend of mine likes to drink a lot, but he knows he has a limit because when he goes over it, he becomes very talkative. He also doesn't date at all, and for a long time we all wondered why. He's a good-look guy. He's really nice. He's fun to be around. When he isn't drinking anyway, never wants to date. Well, one time he got absolutely shit-faced, and I found out why. It turns out that when he was a kid, he saw his aunt murder his uncle in cold blood. Ever since, he's been terrified of being alone with a woman and feels like he could never truly be safe around them. I scolded a drunk girl because she was trying to shoot up in the bathroom of a strip club. At first, I was pissed because there was blood on the toilet seat. She started crying and said, "It's not my fault. My dad's been shooting me up since I was 10. It was freaking sad." And I felt horrible for yelling at her. Edit shoot up equals to injecting drugs into her veins. I'm aware she could be lying. However, it could equally be true. In the strip club, you find a lot of _ women with _ up stories. Had it been anywhere else, I wouldn't have believed her. Freshman year of college, among all the new friends I made that year, there was one guy who was always a goofball, very laid back, casual down. For whatever, the biggest red flag we got from him was that whenever people were drinking and hanging out, he would always essentially black out. He drank way too much and would kind of spaghetti noodle his way around the party while also intoxicated. After the party had winded down one night, a few people, and I asked him why he always goes so damn hard while drooping his head, a ton sloshing around and slurring everything. He told us about how a few months ago, the summer before college started, his best friend called him. They lived in a small town by the beach, and his friend asked him to come meet him to watch the sunset by the water. He biked over there, sat down, and they talked for a while. Everything seemed fine. Then his friend took out a pistol and shot himself in the head, killing himself instantly. Apparently my friend had to call the police while covered in blood, brains, and skull fragments, just totally in shock. And then a few weeks later, he went off to college a few states away, still in shock and unable to sleep or focus on anything he didn't remember, telling us that story. And I don't think any of us wanted to bring it up. His drinking habits didn't change until he was about to graduate, by which point he started going to therapy, got a job right after graduation, and seems to be doing better in the years since. Thank God, not brutal or anything, but my mom admitted to breaking confidentiality to find my dad's birth parents despite him pleading not to. She laughed about it and thought it was the funniest thing about how mad my dad was. That was the day I realized my mom doesn't care about others. My cousin's wife tried to do the same thing using me. He's told her numerous times that he wanted nothing to do with his dad or any of his other relatives from that side, but she felt determined. It finally took me screaming _ off with this _ before laying into her about respecting her husband's wishes. I still haven't told my cousin about this. My parents finally fessed up that they had another child who died before me and my twin sister were born. This in itself wasn't exactly terrifying, because unfortunately that does happen sometimes. What made it so terrifying was the fact that my sister and I knew yet for our whole lives our parents had convinced us we were misremembering. I'm not sure how we knew our brother died a year before we were born, and we've never met him. There are zero pictures of him. He was never mentioned. Our parents and the rest of our family collectively forgot about him. And I have to mention that this is totally in line with our family. They will just close ranks and forget absolutely everything they don't want to acknowledge. Yet somehow from a very early age, my sister and I told everyone we had a brother. Lots of our school friends were aware of our brother when it was finally revealed that it was just the two of us our friends gave us __ for lying, but my sister and I were just genuinely confused because we knew. It was true many times over the years we confronted our parents about it. Every single time they lied to us, they promised we never had any other siblings, they swore up and down we were just confused. Then one day, when they were both drunk, we overheard them talking about him and ran down to call them on it. And they finally confessed. This still doesn't explain how we knew. I can only imagine we must have heard or seen something when we were very young and just don't consciously remember, but it's __ up beyond belief that the entire Inayar family lied to us for 16 years. We even remembered his name. The most terrifying thing of all is the fact that my sister and I still think they're lying. Both of us have a distinct memory of playing with a slightly older boy when we were very young, and both of us remember thinking of him as our older brother within the context of the memory my grandpa never talked about. His Korean War service, he had severe PTSD, though would wake up in the middle of the night screaming. Then one night, he came home absolutely shit-faced, laid down on the couch, then told me that his entire unit had been wiped out before his eyes. He was the sole survivor and got caught behind enemy lines, but made it out he was their sergeant and blamed himself. He eventually got into veterans therapy in his 60s, though hanging out with a couple of former roommates 20 or so years ago. One of them mentioned he found young people attractive, then clarified, saying very young, also never once hung out again. I hope he didn't do anything to them. Me too. I don't think he himself would do anything to a kid, but at the same time I would not be surprised if one day his hard drive gets seized and he gets picked up. 22 years since this conversation. Maybe he got some therapy, or his dad beats me. My ex in college told me once when he was blackout drunk that a few years prior him and a bunch of other kids broke into a house to have a party. The family that lived there was on vacation or something, and we're all gone to how they picked the house or knew it'd be empty. Sorry if it's been like 12 years. I forgot some details. They all got drunk, and someone decided it would be fun to break a picture on the wall. Then someone else did too. Eventually it devolved into them all destroying the house, absolutely everything. They could. All the windows were broken, broke the legs off all the chairs, and used them to beat holes in the walls, ripped and stole clothing, ripped or burn all the family photos on the walls, and __ I don't remember all the stuff he said that they broke, but I remember him crying and saying that they ruined those people's lives, and there's no way to make it right. I honestly think he was so __ up that he doesn't remember telling me, because we never mentioned it again anyway. Like 2 years later, he punched me in the face for asking for a ride to work one too many times. So I guess he was a piece of __ regardless of current situation or alcohol intake. A group of local kids did this to my grandparents' cottage. My grandparents weren't wealthy, just grew up when the average family could afford a cottage home up the state along the water. They broke into stole stuff, had parties over the course of several weeks. During one of their parties, a fire got out of control. The kids burned the place down. We lost everything, every item tied to memories, all gone. These kids now, young men, one serving jail time for repeated burglaries, also would shoot fish in barrels and kill the litter of kittens by torturing them to death. My cousins and I, growing up there on weekends, were encouraged to play with them. We had to explain over and over again they were not good people, and they scared the __ out of all 5 of us. Then they burned our place down years later. Full circle. I guess my dad is a 30-plus year U.S. Army vet. One day last year we were drinking and playing cards, and at one point he talked about some of the stuff he had to do when he was in Iraq and Afghanistan with the Army. He hates himself for it and basically believes his PTSD is his punishment for what he had to do over there, and never said anything else about it. My 2 siblings and myself keep trying to get him to get professional help, or at least talk to us, but he refuses. At a party, all was going well until a middle-aged couple started having an intoxicated, blazing row. This domestic occurred a few minutes short of midnight. The wife involved was not a co-worker, but her husband was. They were both very drunk. People intervened with me, escorting the husband into the cloakroom to cool off. Now I knew that this guy had a reputation as a cheating Tinder hustler and that he'd often brag about his extramarital conquests. I wasn't ready for him to confess that he had hepatitis and had tested HIV positive 6 months ago. but confess yes, he did, sobbing that his wife was going to leave him, as if he was the victim. TLDR, drunk, married, Sully bad, confessed to sexual relations with multiple Tinder dates, knowing he had hepatitis and HIV. They didn't tell me this while they were drunk, but I think it fits here. I'm a volunteer at a nursing home. When one of the female residents was close to death, she confided it in me, this one-timer. Husband cheated on her with a neighbor's wife. When the neighbor's husband found out, he was very upset and was going to physically hurt her husband. They worked out a deal where the neighbor's husband would not hurt her husband if he was able to return the favor. In essence, her husband agreed to let the neighbor have her in order to save himself a righteous beating. It gets worse. She later became pregnant and told her husband for the rest of his life that it was his, but she honestly believed it to be the neighbor's her whole life. She was carrying this burden about her son and what her husband had done to her, both with the cheating on her and with the trading her off like a cow. It was truly a heartbreaking conversation. My great-grandfather was in World War II. He never ever spoke of it. If you asked him about it, he would politely get up, grab his drink, and go somewhere else. After my first deployment to Afghanistan, he called me and said I can finally talk to someone. I started hanging out with him all the time. I would tell him stories, and he would tell me some. When I went on leave, we had a night where me and him were going drink for drink. After a while, he tells me about a time when him and his unit found a small concentration camp. They aren't all big like Alwas. He said the first thing he remembers was the smell. He said the smell was so bad, he almost threw up a handful of times. So this camp didn't have ovens or a gas chamber. When they went through at the north side of the camp was a pit they had dug out. Inside the pit must have been thousands of decaying bodies. He said he was sure that the ones on the bottom were probably skeletons. When they talked to the people, they said the Nazis would line people at random and shoot them. Their bodies would just fall in. He said the Jews told them that as some starved to death, they would throw themselves in with hopes of breaking their necks when they hit the Germans. Knew the Allies were close. They locked the gate, took the food or poisoned it, and put dead bodies in the place they store the water. He said the disease and infections were so bad that many of the soldiers in his unit were scared to help them. He told me that out of all the underscore he had went through, that was the worst. It tore him apart. And he said those poor people would haunt his dreams. He felt like he didn't do enough. He felt like those times when they couldn't push the line forward, it was just another day or another week. Those poor people had to be tortured. My great-grandfather was proud of his time in World War II, and he lived a great life. He died in 2011 at home in his bed, watching his favorite show at it. I never expected this to blow up. I've posted about him before and never got a response like this. I am touched that so many people came to this comment and responded and read about my great-grandfather. However, I don't want people to know just this about him. My great-grandfather was a really good man. He was married for 60 years, and my great-grandmother passed 2 years after him. They had 12 children and tried their best to make those around them happy. My great-grandfather wouldn't want any of you to be sad about what he went through. He was grateful for the opportunity to do something truly good for the world. However strong my own suffering is from experiencing what I can truly call hell on earth, I cannot fathom the eternal suffering that Jewish people have felt and will feel for generations to come. I am sorry for those that I could not save, and I am sorry for the times we had to retreat or fall back. I am sorry for the times we got pulled back to the rear. I knew of the atrocities your people faced, but until I saw them, I had no idea. Do not feel sorry for me, though I'm happy to suffer. I hope good things for your people's future, and I pray we all learn from this terrible war. He wrote this in a letter to one of the survivors from that camp. He couldn't bring himself to meet him in person, and I didn't push him. A thank you again to everyone. As for the museums, thank you everyone that gave a suggestion. I will be calling them tomorrow. When he was a teenager, he heard from someone that a neighbor girl had been teasing his dog, so he pretended to be nice to her dog one day and lured it into a field. He placed it by its collar onto a metal stake so it couldn't get free, and he slammed rocks into its head until it died. He laughed when he told me this. I had just married him a few weeks prior, and I was horrified to Vork now, 21 years later, when I kept realizing over and over that yes, he is a psychopath, not criticizing, but generally curious. Did you not see any red flags prior to this? Usually these people are really good at hiding who they really are. They act super charismatic and like the perfect partner until their victim is trapped in some way, or the other pregnancy, marriage, or simply not having any friends and not speaking to their family members anymore. Then they'll reveal who they really are, because they feel like their victim has no way to escape. My best friend told me she loved me and wanted me to leave my wife last night. I've known her since we were in grade school, and I feel sick I don't even know if she remembers, because this morning she texted me about some new manga release that I should buy for my wife. Edit, I did talk to my wife. She got home a few hours ago and had actually gone to my friend's house to pick up my guitar and switch that I left there. I saw a few comments of people worried I would leave my wife, and I just want to say that it's absolutely laughable that I would ever leave her. I assure you my wife has no competition, no matter who it is. There is absolutely 100% nobody as amazing or cute as my adorable Wi-Fi. I'm not going to forget that. Thanks so much for the support and advice you all gave. I wasn't expecting a random Reddit comment to give me this much support. Was sitting at home when a friend of mine came over shit-faced. She staggered in and sat down on the couch a few feet from me. She told me something completely __ up. When I was 17, my stepdad was drunk and tried to have sex with me because I looked like his dead wife. He kept calling me Abigail and just wouldn't let go of me. He kept saying he missed her and that he loves her, but knew she'd never come back. He said I reminded him of her to the point he couldn't help himself. That's why I never talk about sex stuff with you guys. I lost my virginity out of pity, and it left me with so much mental and emotional damage. She started crying after that, but I had no idea what to do or say. I was stunned, and it hit me how she doesn't talk about her stepdad. When asked about her family, she said, I'm the only one that knows about any of this, not so much as a confession. But the moment I realized he was seriously messed up, I was living with my parents to help my sick mother. Dad came home, AB absolutely wasted, and decided to have a really in-depth conversation with me. Asked about my depression, some traumatic things that had happened to me. He was really listening to me for the first time in my life. I felt seen and heard. We talked about what triggered my depression, suicidal thoughts, etc. He genuinely listened, then just stared me straight in the eyes with the most cruel smile on his face and said, now, I know I'm going to push and push and push. We'll see how long it takes until you kill yourself. I moved out the next day. Everyone told me to forget it / forgive it because he was drunk. I've never stayed with him since and try to avoid my dad as much as possible with his previous behaviors. I could see him following through. Edit, I am completely floored by the amount of support and comments. Thank you all. I posted this because it was a messed up situation. Apparently, I didn't realize quite how bad it was. My normal meter has been broken for a long time. Thank you for helping me to fine tune it. If you will, I wasn't expecting this response. So if I don't reply, please know I will still read your comments. It's just a lot to take in. Thank you for your support. I've told this story before, and it is one I don't expect anyone to believe, but I don't care who believes what I was there, and I know what went down anyway. I had a friend in high school who had a younger brother I was also friends with and who also attended the same school. The three of us, sometimes with others, would often meet in the bathroom directly across from the administrative office to smoke cigarettes first thing in the morning. For whatever reason, the teachers and admins never looked in that bathroom for smokers. So we're in the bathroom that day, and the older of my two friends said that he had just gotten a new video game. I think it was Aliens on Jaguar or something along those lines. He was talking about how fun it was, and I asked if I could come over that night and play it. He said, __. This why wait, let's go play it now. My parents would have given me a lecture or something, and they rarely answer the phone. There was a high probability that I could just skip school, and my parents would never know. His dad would beat his and his brother's asses. If they skipped school, he wouldn't be home until late. So going to their house wasn't an issue, but they had to make sure no one called their father when they didn't show up to homeroom. So they went to the admin office and told them that their aunt had just died and they needed to go home. They said their dad was on the way to pick them up. Everything went smooth as could be, and we headed out toward his house. We're about halfway to his house when a car pulls up on us like it is trying to run us over. It's their dad. He's __. Fuming, he says, your aunt just died, and I've been looking everywhere for you. Getting the __. Car, we all thought that maybe the school did call, left a message offering condolences or something, and he just didn't know it was all a lie. So the younger of my friend says, Dad, we just told them that so they wouldn't call you. He says, I know what you did, and now my sister is dead. I hope you're happy. I still thought for sure he was just trying to teach them a lesson or something, but no, she actually died despite being to beat his kids for doing dumb ___. Kind of dude, he was as much of a friend to all of us as his kids were, so later I heard his side of the story. He called the school to tell them he would be picking them up because their aunt just died, and they said something like, oh yes, they already informed us of everything, they'll be waiting out front for you. He had just found out himself from their grandmother, who definitely did not call the school. So he was a little confused, but decided to figure that out later, and when to pick them up when he got to the school, he didn't see them. So he walked around the building, then went in and asked them to call them over the PA, all while stressing out about his sister. Having just died, then he realized asses were. Beat, they blame themselves to this day. I'm pretty sure their dad does too.